Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today is day 64 of my learning journey in Blender. So tonight I followed a Ryan King art procedural material Blender tutorial on YouTube to add to my very small collection of procedural materials in Blender. I've been downloading actual textures where possible, but I think it's probably good to have a mix of the two different types. And Ryan King art seems to be one of the absolute best at explaining the process of creating the procedural materials, and he's also kind enough to not just lock the knowledge behind a paywall. He does provide the option to pay to gain access to the final project files of the video that you're watching, but also doesn't mind if you just follow along and end up with practically the same end result. So that is very much appreciated. By the way, I can't even begin to imagine how difficult creating such long tutorials on YouTube is. Like, the act of going through step by step, writing a script or coming up with a good structure for the tutorials, and then to execute them so flawlessly, it's like actually mind-boggling. It's impressive. Yeah, Ryan King art is great at taking the viewer step by step through the process and doesn't seem to miss a single beat when explaining what he's doing, but more importantly, the logic behind why he's doing a certain thing. So yeah, in this case, I followed his most recent tutorial at the time of recording this video called Procedural Moss Material Blender Tutorial. You can see what the final end result looks like roughly behind me. You can make plenty of changes to the material, like changing the strength of the displacement, changing location, rotation, and scale for most things. Like, I think they used a noise and a Voronoi texture node in there. And you can even replace the underlying material, the non-moss material. I think by default, if you follow the tutorial, it's a sort of a blackened, like a darkened diffuse BSDF material. But you can obviously supplement, like put your own in there with soil or dirt or sort of cement or whatever it is you want to use. So yeah, check it out. I think it looks great. I'll throw a link to his video in the description, of course, if you want to go check that out and consider subscribing to his channel if you're in the need for fairly regular procedural material tutorials for Blender. So I didn't want to let the Blender train come to a stop for the night, so I continued doing more tutorials. I continued the scripting for artists tutorial. Again, it's just introductory scripting stuff in the context of Blender, but it's cool because it's official. The videos that I followed tonight are actually free on the Blender website. You don't even need an account or a subscription to gain access to them, which is pretty cool. It looks like at a certain point in 2020, Sebrin started answering some user-submitted questions from people who were following the Scripting for Artists series. Someone asked on Twitter, I see you have for loops, when is it better to use while loops instead? So the first video I watched was a 10-minute video dedicated to answering that question. In the end, I think Sebrin creates a script that looks like, it looks at the number of vertices the selected object has, and if it's less than 10,000 verts, for example, it opens edit mode, selects all, subdivides the mesh, and then goes back to object mode to update the vertices count. And he basically runs through this, and tests it first with an if statement, and then when he confirms that it's all working as intended with no issues and no infinite loops, he turns it into a while statement. I did one video after that where Sebrin teaches us how to create our own operators in Blender. This one was a bit more complicated again, but definitely something more useful that I could see myself using in the future, if I get good enough. So yeah, this is what he basically taught us how to do. Create a monkey grid, kind of like in a previous video where he created 600 monkeys along the X and the Y axis. This is the same kind of thing, but you can actually load the operator into, like, you can search for it. What was it called? Monkey grid. So we can click that. The code allows us to pop up this little settings menu here thing. And we were able to set some soft maximums, so minimum and soft maximum, up to 10 for the x-axis, up to 10 for the y-axis, but then if you want to go over that, you can go, say, 15, and it will allow you. So that was pretty cool to know. And then you can, of course, change the size of all of these as well. Yep. And Yeah, it was interesting stuff. It was more complicated than I'm used to, but like I say, I'm a beginner, so I don't have much knowledge in this kind of thing at all. Um, but from the way that he teaches it, it makes sense, and it makes me interested in learning more about it. So yeah, this is cool. I could imagine creating my own like custom made things in Blender for this. I don't know. It's certainly neat to experiment and play around with, and it gets you thinking in a different way. So that there's always that. I recommend it. Some of these videos are available for free on the Blender website. So definitely go check them out if you're interested. That brings this video to a close. Have a great day, everyone, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.